If Disney wants to make more woke films that tank at the box office, they are more than welcome to do that, but maybe think of an original idea. Maybe not.
Welcome to the Be Wise podcast. I'm your host, Chris Wright, where we discuss politics, entertainment, sports, and social media. And I wanted to say happy Thanksgiving. It is Thanksgiving tomorrow. I'm looking forward to eating a lot. I love Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know, what's your favorite part of Thanksgiving dinner? I happen to like turkey and stuffing. If the mashed potatoes are right, yes. Not much of a macaroni and cheese guy because I'm lactose intolerant. So depends on how much cheese is in it. I don't like it creamy. I like it more hard and, have some substance to it. Like you can cut it in like squares. If it's creamy and nah, don't like it. And I'll definitely have problems later if that's what the mac and cheese is like. So anyway, what happens around Thanksgiving, of course, it's Hollywood movie time. All the new releases come out, mostly family and kids movies, big time for DreamWorks, Disney, all the animation movies and things like that. They want to draw families into the theater. So there's going to be less movies that are rated R, more going to be G to PG 13. Again, family movies, kids movies, and like Disney goes crazy. So I went to see Moana with my daughter today, and it was very good. We love the first Moana. And so they showed the previews to this new Snow White. And I mentioned the Snow White in a couple of episodes ago, and I just got an uneasy feeling as I was watching this trailer. And I think a lot of Americans are going to feel like that. Um, this Rachel Zegler girl, the new Snow White, came out and openly criticized and wished, it's unpeace, unpeace, not violence, but unpeace to Trump supporters. Um, and then she's just been in all kinds of trouble. She never learned to shut up. But I'm really surprised that Disney never set her down. I think anytime Disney hires someone, they should ask them what their views are. They did the same thing with the young lady, and I'm sorry, her name escapes me, but she was on The Mandalorian, and she was right wing, conservative, Trump supporter, and she was vocal on Twitter at the time, and she got fired for it. And I just think that was unfortunate. Now it looks hypocritical because Rachel Zegler is left wing, Kamala Harris supporter, very outspoken against right wing people and Donald Trump specifically. And she didn't get fired, and they kept her in the movie. Now, she also lost a $10 million deal to Blumhouse Studios, which does horror movies, because she was so outspoken about not just politics, but also their direction, how she felt the movies were. And they just said, you know what? You're too much. You're too much. And so they canceled the deal. They said, we need another actress by January, and you're not going to be it. But Disney stuck with this, I guess, because Disney put millions and millions of dollars into their projects. So by the time the election came, with this Snow White coming out for Christmas, it's already done. It's already recorded, and Disney's just not happy about it. So if you're not familiar with it, here's a couple of clips with Rachel Zegler and what happened. A little background on it.
Disney's Snow White Rachel Zegler has broke her silence after insulting Trump voters. The 23-year-old actress said she hoped Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace after he won the election, causing an uproar and calls for Disney to fire her. Hours later, she posted an apology. "I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding, and I am sorry I contributed to the negative discourse."
Yeah, but the apology's a little late. You've already said it. We know what you said. And I love Disney movies, and it broke my heart that I'm sitting there to see Moana 2. They showed the Mufasa Lion King movie that's coming out. I'm excited about that. Then they showed Snow White, and I just kind of felt a pit in my stomach. If I can't watch a trailer of her, there's no way I'm watching a 2-hour movie. I'm saddened because I loved Maleficent, that movie with Angelina Jolie. I love anything about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's an amazing story. It's a legacy story, and she kind of ruined it for us. I don't know how I feel about it. So since I have so many feelings and emotions, and I was just looking for the right words to say tonight, and I really couldn't think of the right things because I just did a episode of the Be Wise podcast about feminism, how I believe that feminism is destroying our country. And it's really hard for a man to say that, especially a conscientious man like myself, because we don't want people to think that we're, misogynistic or that we're anti-feminist or um, male chauvinist. So it's better to get women to speak about that. And I found a clip on TikTok, Tammy Lauren, and she did it perfectly.
Wants to make more woke films that tank at the box office, they are more than welcome to do that. But maybe think of an original idea. Maybe not destroy a classic from my childhood and put an actress in there that not only hates the plot and the storyline of the movie she's in, but also seemingly hates Snow White, the character herself. I mean, that's one interview clip that you read the quote from, but she's gone on to talk about this film numerous times, how she once thought Snow White was creepy. She doesn't like the prince. She thinks she should get paid more because she has to wear that dress. She should get paid for streaming for every hour she has to wear the dress. I mean, talk about biting the hand that feeds you. Not only are you being casted in a classic film to remake it, but you don't seemingly like your own character. So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat. And that's why people are so annoyed beyond just them inserting feminism. I think we expect that at this point. But why do you have to mess with a classic, especially with someone who doesn't even seem to like her own character?
So that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. I mean, I don't know if you can get better than that. But even more, Tammy Lauren went into a little bit more about how all these roles are being changed in movies. Like they're changing the color of legacy characters. And listen, I understand inclusion, but you're doing it wrong. You're starting to put black faces where there was historically white faces. I remember when the Little Mermaid came out and they used the black girl Bailey. I think her name is. I can't remember her full name. Anyway, not important. But I didn't really care at the time because I just thought it was a one-off situation. Maybe they had a casting call and she did really well. She sung very well, and I just thought, okay, um, she did a good job as the Little Mermaid. But then I started to see it more and more and more where black faces were in white spaces or where there was legacy characters where there was always a white face and then they replaced it with a black actress. And I just make another movie like Disney and DreamWorks and all these studios that want to make kids movies and family movies. Just make another movie. You don't have to replace legacy characters with black faces. I'm not offended. that James Bond has never been black. My entire life, James Bond has been a white man. Sean Connery, Roger Moore, on and on and on and on. And I know they were thinking about Idris Elba at one point playing as James Bond. And if you had spoke against that, you would have been like, oh, that's racist. But just make another character. Like Idris Elba did a show on BBC called Luther. I think he was a detective. It was amazing. It was amazing. James Patterson has a book about Alex Cross. I think Morgan Freeman played Alex Cross one time. There's a new black actor playing Alex Cross. It's amazing. Like, you don't have to replace white faces with black faces in order to be appeasing or pandering to a community of people. That's just the way I feel. So I'm just saying that, like, stop doing it. Stop doing it. And I'm glad Snow White was actually still white. Tammy Lauren goes on. She talks some more about these role reversals. So check it out.
For wanting to call a modern audience, Gen Z and younger, these girls, they think differently, they act differently, they have different aspirations in life.
It's okay to modernize things, but if you have such an issue with the original fairy tale and the original storyline, maybe instead of remaking it, you just make a different movie. I don't think that's too much to ask for. But furthermore, listen, you can have female characters that are empowered, that do great things, that are heroines. I mean, that's fantastic. I don't think anybody has an issue with it. But you don't have to disparage men in the process. You don't have to call Prince Charming a stalker. You don't have to say that you could just eliminate him from the whole movie. I mean,
and that's part of the feminism movement that I was talking about in my last episode, that a large part of feminism is hating men, destroying men, speaking badly about men, not wanting them to be part of the world. And that's kind of what she's talking about here. Continue.
Actress in there that not only hates the plot and the storyline of the movie she's in, but also seemingly hates Snow White, the character herself. I mean, that's one. Think anybody has an issue with it, but you don't have to disparage men in the process. You don't have to call Prince Charming a stalker. You don't have to say that you could just eliminate him from the whole movie. I mean, there is a space where you can have strong females and strong males. It's called the real world, or, you know, at least some places it still exists. Maybe only here in Nashville, Tennessee and others. But it's okay to do both. And you don't have to make men seem emasculated and puny to make women seem strong. And you don't have to eliminate them altogether, as this actress has actually suggested.
I was thinking about the James Bond franchise. You know, there's often this mooted idea that women will suddenly be stepping in to play Bond. We've obviously got a lot of female characters in that now. Do you think that's been to James Bond's detriment, or do you think it's been a success the way they've modernized that?
When you have a franchise that you have created around a James Bond character who is a strong male character, you don't need to go and then replace James Bond with a female. You can have other strong females. But what is this process now where it's like, in order to be inclusive, you have to completely destroy storylines, completely destroy franchises? I don't believe in that. I don't think that consumers believe in that either.
But nevertheless, she's right about, now she was talking about females taking male roles, but I was talking earlier about different races taking familiar race roles. And I personally don't think it's necessary. I wish they wouldn't do it. Just create another character. That's all I'm saying. Do it that way. I think we'll all be better off. And you won't have all this controversy surrounding your project or your movie. So Disney and other studios, just be careful with that. I don't know if that, people like that. Anyway, that was about the woke Snow White. So I was just talking about how it was when I was in the theater today. I just got this pit in my stomach, and I was like, I don't know if I'll ever see that movie. Maybe once I get over it, I will I'll give it a whirl. But she's got some explaining to do. All right. So Warrior Nancy Mace, Congresswoman from South Carolina, has been in the news, man. She created a firestorm around the bathroom situation. Let me say something about this whole Nancy Mace situation. What has happened over the last 4 or 5 to 8 years is that the whole LGBT community issue has been pushed up in the forefront. You had to make a moral decision if you were going to support it or be against it. There was a wedding venue near where I live, and about I would say probably 10 years ago, maybe even longer, they took a stance that they would not allow same-sex marriages at their venue. I was appalled. I work in the wedding industry. I'm a wedding DJ. I said, I'm never working there again. I think a lot of other vendors felt the same way. The cake makers, the photographers, the florist, of course, the DJs. And so we were just being very supportive of a disenfranchised and marginalized group of people in our country. And that was the LGBT community. I'm trying to be careful about how I say this because I do support that community. I support same-sex marriages. But what has happened over the last 4 to 8, 10 years is that more and more and more it's progressed. And there are some things morally, ethically, value-wise that some people might say, okay, I'm okay with that, but this is a bridge too far. I'm good with this. I don't want that. And what I mean is when maybe it started getting into the schools, teachers were teaching alternative lifestyles to children, talking about non-binary, sexual orientation, male, female pronouns, transgenders, men in sports, transgenders in sport. See how it's progressed over the years? Like you heard none of this 10 to 15 years ago. And now we're having to deal with making decisions about this or that. And in doing that, what typically happens is, and think about it, we all have gay friends, we have gay family members. But remember, there's an LGBTQIA plus, like there's a lot of letters there. And how do you say, I support all of them, or I support equal treatment, equal rights for all of them across the board without it touching your own personal life, without it having an effect on your family, your children, et cetera, even down to student athletes in high schools and college. It's just become a thing. So we're going to hear more about it again and again. So Nancy Mace was once a very strong supporter of same-sex marriage, the LGBT community, and a congressman won, Sarah McBride. So Sarah McBride is a congressman. He talks about how Sarah McBride, bathroom controversy explained, says that she's elected for Delaware, set to become the first openly transgender member of Congress, won't be allowed to use women's restrooms in the United States Capitol. All right. House Speaker Mike Johnson enacted a new rule after Representative Nancy Mace led a push for the ban that said was to absolutely target McBride. She's not having it. she's just not having it. And you have to wonder, like, here it is. That's the article. So you have to just wonder, like, does she have a point? And then, here's another article that states that she was a very strong supporter of LGBTQ. She was an ally to the anti-trans culture warrior. So now they're saying, this is how they're going to spin this. Now they're saying that she went from ally to warrior against Nancy Mace. They're talking about she's suddenly against the LGBT community. And I don't think that's it at all. She's just saying, listen, we have women rooms at the Capitol, and I do not want to see balls and penises in the women's restroom. I was a victim of sexual assault, and it's not happening.
Sure that no men are in women's private spaces, and it's not going to end here. This shouldn't be going on any federal property. If you're a school or an institution that gets government funding, this kind of thing should be banned. I think it's sick, it's twisted. I have fought like hell for women's rights, and to see the way that I've been attacked today and last night for fighting to protect women and girls, it's ridiculous. So if that being a feminist makes me an extremist, I'm totally here for it.
Is this effort in response to Congresswoman McBride's coming to Congress?
Yes, and absolutely, and then some. I'm not going to stand for a man. If someone with a penis is in the women's locker room, that's not okay. And I'm a victim of abuse myself. I'm a rape survivor. I have PTSD from the abuse I've suffered at the hands of a man. And I know how vulnerable women and girls are in private spaces. So I'm absolutely 100% going to stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom.
I think you almost have to feel for her. How she feels very strongly about this. And I also heard the flip side of that, where they say, well, transgenders going into men's rooms is not safe as well. They could be assaulted, sexually assaulted, physically assaulted, beat up, mocked, bullied, abused. So I can imagine that too, where you're a guy, you're at the urinal, what you think is a woman walking into the bathroom, you'll go, whoa, 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 and she'll go, I'm a man. Now you're thinking, I got to get out of here. So the men would maybe be uncomfortable too. Then she has to pee, but she's not going to stand up there as a woman and lift up her skirt. So she'll go maybe into the stall. It's just a lot. It's very confusing. I was going to say another word, but I don't want to be disrespectful. So she'll have to go into a stall. So that could be dangerous too. So then buildings are going to have to make bathrooms that are for, both sexes, but can't use them at the same time like you do at a convenience store. Of course, that's going to cost more money to do. So I don't know. So the whole thing is very confusing. And so Nancy Mace, she's on a charge.
Blow up the radical left last night. I filed a resolution that would ban biological men from women's private spaces on the Hill. I'm just getting started, and I've already nowhere near stopping, and the death threats that I'm receiving now aren't going to stop me either. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. Come at me, bro, or bros in this case. I'm not going to take your threats for an answer. I'm going to fight like hell for women and girls to keep men out of women's private spaces, to include bathrooms, restrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, you name it. You are not welcome.
Yeah, so she was talking about the threats, and there has been threats. And I don't know why these videos are so low in volume. I got to figure this out. I apologize. But she has been getting threats. Even this TikTok guy was absolutely crazy.
Video goes out to Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman Nancy Mace, I hope that one day I do find you in that women's bathroom and I grab your ratty looking fucking hair and drag your face down to the floor while I repeatedly bash it in until the blood's everywhere and you're dead. Thank you. I hope that Nancy Mace receives this message well.
That was sick. I think the FBI needs to be out looking for that guy. Yeah. And then she talks about the threats that she got at a conference she went to.
Hey guys, I am at the airport making my way back home to low country in South Carolina. I just spoke at an event with a couple hundred people. Some trans lunatic tried to rush the stage and attack me. And he is just making the case for me that we don't want penises in women's spaces. F off. And I just had a woman come up to me and get in my face about it, and I told her to F right off. I'm not going to tolerate it, and I'm going to fight harder and bigger than ever before. I will be the giant you can't take out, and you can't bully me into submission.
So yeah, that's what she's going through right now, and it's just unfortunate because it is a very complicated issue. Different journalists on TV are coming out against Nancy Mace, and they're just not seeing her side of the story. Some people are just looking at it as a liberal conservative viewpoint or right versus left. It's not. It's about women feeling safe in women's spaces and feeling comfortable. And it's the same thing with the college athletes and the Olympic boxers and all that kind of stuff, that they're not comfortable. And I don't think that people should feel uncomfortable for a political or social issue. Just shouldn't happen. Should not happen. So the big news of the week, and I saved this for last, is charges were dropped. Donald Trump, charges were dropped. And it's been quiet. That's what I'll say. It's been quiet. I'm really surprised that we haven't heard more from the left, from the right. I did hear a few things. Here was the news.
Counsel Jack Smith just filed motions to drop both of his federal cases against Trump. A judge immediately approved one motion, and the January 6th case is officially dead. And by the end of the week, we expect the documents case to be dead, too. That's not all. Smith is taking his ball and he's going home, saying he's going to step down as special counsel before Trump takes office. Meanwhile, Trump's reportedly planning to fire any and all federal lawyers who had anything to do with either of these two prosecutions.
So Jack Smith took the axe and said, boom, I'm out. I'm out. Like, how do you make such a sweeping decision like that? That's landmark. That's like the biggest move of your career. Like, listen, I'm going to drop all charges against Donald Trump, and then I'm out. I'm gone. Not doing this anymore because we know what's going to happen to that whole Justice Department once Trump's get in office. So it's kind of interesting. But we love The View on this show, right? We love The View. We love The View. And why do we love The View? We love The View because these women are absolutely comical. Like, do they really believe what they say? Right? So the charges were dropped against Donald Trump. Sonny Hostin comes on The View and said, that's why he ran for president. That is absolutely asinine and ludicrous. He ran for no other reason. Was after he ran in 2016, president for 4 years. He ran again in 2020 and lost. And he ran again now in 2024. And you're saying, Sonny, I can't. I just can't.
Believe that the reason that he was running again to be president was partially because he wants to sort of milk money out of the government, which is what he did the first time. He was running to stay out of jail. That's what he was doing. If we're being honest, okay?
And it worked.
But let me say the other thing I want to say is, you know, a lot of people are
Listen to Joy Behar. It worked. It worked.
being honest, okay?
And it worked.
But let me say the other thing I want to say is, you know, a lot of people are blaming Merrick Garland and saying, why did he take so long? And they're blaming the Department of Justice. Why did they take so long? As an alum of the Department of Justice, I want to make it clear that these cases generally take between 2 and 4 years to prosecute. I know that sounds crazy, but think about how many witnesses, including yourself, who testified in front of that House committee, 1,000.
Yeah.
When you are a prosecutor like Jack Smith and receive that case, you now have to re-interview those witnesses. You're not going to just take the paperwork and say, okay, Alyssa said this, so that's fine. You've got to do the work yourself. So
That's not why Jack Smith dropped it. I think Jack Smith thought, like me and many other Americans, going through the paperwork, looking at the hundreds of millions of dollars that was spent by American taxpayers, looking at all the minutia, starting from Russia, collusion, to raiding Mar-a-Lago, to this, to that, to New York attorney, Letitia, the Atlanta thing. Jack Smith just looked at it and said, this is too much. This is all too much. No sitting president has ever been treated like this. I don't think a politician has been treated like this. Gerald Ford, he basically exonerated Richard Nixon because he said, you know what, it's too much for the country. You know what, he was impeached. I'm going to let him resign, and I'm going to pardon him. And he pardoned him. Nixon, go home, enjoy your life. Sauer, you served. Thank you for your service. We don't see it like that. So Smith didn't drop the case because it was overwhelming. No, not the paperwork, not the interviews.
between the House committee report being released, that was in 2022, they were gearing up against all of this pressure from the other side, appeals, motions.
So what can Jack
legal
Smith
practice.
do now?
Now what he has done is he's withdrawn the cases. The judge has said they are withdrawn without prejudice. What that means is you can bring them again. But the problem is, because he's the sitting president, you can't continue the prosecution, and the statute of limitations will likely run out when he's done. So he did what he wanted to do. But the last final point I'll make, you know, I know that most people are saying, well, this was a kitchen table issue. This was about the cost of eggs. Donald Trump never talked about the cost of eggs. He tried to commit a sex act on a microphone. He talked about, you know, pets being eaten.
Yeah.
But when the exit polls were taken, the 92% of black women that voted for the vice president said that the number one issue for them was January 6th. And he was running to stay out of jail.
She hates Donald Trump. Like, it's deeper than politics for her. And I don't understand why. She has a personal vendetta against him. So first of all, I have never, ever, and I talked about feminism in my last episode. All the issues that women talked about was reproductive rights, women's rights. And then secondly, maybe it was the moral fiber of Donald Trump. It might have been the economy. I never heard a woman. No. Women voted for Kamala Harris for two reasons. She was a woman and she was black. Straight up. And then it was because about women's rights, reproductive rights. And I've never heard a woman say, J6, you lie, Sonny. You're lying. That's not what went down. And you know it. So don't sit up on The View where no one believes you, but that studio audience, because I don't know anybody in my life or anywhere around me that even watched the show. I don't even know where you get your viewers from. All right. Who watches The View? Put it in the comments. Let me know. Inbox me, email me, and tell me if you watch The View, do you believe Sonny Hostin and the words that come out of her mouth? There's no way you do. But that's why they lost the election, because of crazy talk. They also lost the election because that kind of talk right there, it's going to continue. They are not going to change. It's a permanent, debilitating disease. People that were Democrats like me quit because we said they're not going to change. Democrats, liberals have tried to talk to people in our party and say, we need to do this, we should do this, we should do that. And Brian Williams, formerly NBC, was on a show, and this is what he said. Listen.
Tough love time for the Democratic Party. I think it needs to be stripped down and rebuilt. I think that means a change in leadership. I want to know who thought it was a good idea that Joe Biden stand for another 4 years at 80 years of age and 37% popularity. So then that saddled the party with a British-like short campaign season for them. I think it's insulting when members of the working class, which the Democratic Party has lost entirely in our lifetimes, to insist the economy is doing great. A 12-pack of Bounty is $40. Rich folks don't feel that. Poor folks already switched to Sparkle during the COVID, during the lockdown. And I think telling them that the NASDAQ is gangbusters is further insulting. It's insulting. I think the biggest unforced error of the Biden administration by far was the border. To tell people it's not a problem is insulting. For the working class to see incoming migrants getting welcome bags, debit cards, and motel rooms is probably insulting as well. So there's a lot of work to do. You know, it was when they handed out camo hats that said Harris Walls, and the Democrats they were kind of charmed by that. Their party has gone quinoa, and the rest of America's eating at Cracker Barrel. And so it was kind of an ironic use of something millions of Americans put on their heads to start their day every day.
He's trying to tell him. I believe that he was a liberal at some point. I believe that he went into the booth and circled Donald Trump and the Republican Party this time, because he just said, what is wrong with those people? And people are wondering, wow, why was the election basically over by 9:30 p.m. on election night? Why is it so quiet? Remember the 2015 election? Remember? They had the pussy hats ready to go. Women marched on Washington the day after the election. It was just a different atmosphere. People stayed, and I mean, it was all about the resistance. I'll never forget it, because I remember thinking about how, yes, he won, but the resistance is going to be strong. And his whole 4 years of, well, at least 2 or 3 of his 4 years in office was resistance from the left, and it was strong resistance. It was not only the women protests and the marches, but it was Black Lives Matter. It was Ferguson. It was constant. It was just a barrage of resistance. And I'm being introspective, because I was thinking about that I was part of that, because I really believed that the Democrats had a platform. I really believed that we had something to fight for, something that we believed in strongly. And now I don't believe any of it, because I don't recognize today's Democratic Party. I don't recognize today's liberals. It's just so weird to me. Anna Navarro talks about that on The View. And I just want to share it before we get out of here, because she gets it.
2016, at this time, the Women's March was being planned. That began getting planned the election night, and it began with a Facebook post of a housewife in Hawaii, and it turned into millions of women marching all over the country the day after the inauguration. I think, look, we're all 8 years older. I think a lot of us are still apoplectic that America voted against a qualified woman again and put in.
Kamala Harris wasn't a qualified woman. People will fight me for that. People get angry at me for that. But Kamala Harris ran for president in 2019. She dropped out because she could not get the financial support for her campaign. She was in single digits in the polls. That tells me you're not qualified. I want to reiterate that. Yes, she has a law degree. Yes, she has a great resume, attorney general, this, that, prosecutor. She has all types of resume accolades. But then she still got the Willie Brown situation she has to contend with. I don't know that lady's sexual life. I don't want to get into it. But my point is it's there. And once it's there, it's always there. But she ran for president. She's going to run again in 2028. And Republicans are chomping at the bit. They can't wait.
This racist, misogynist, and they don't care. And so it's like, so it's tiring. It is exhausting. It is disappointing.
The whole racist, misogynist, it's old. It's tired. Dems got to stop that. I almost said we have to stop that, but I can't do it anymore. Stop saying that people are racist and misogynist. It's not about that.
And so it's like, so it's tiring. It is exhausting. It is disappointed. I think this election cycle was an emotional roller coaster, right? We had Joe Biden, the debate, 2 assassination attempts, Kamala coming in and running hard, leaving it all on the field for 107 days.
Twerking, concerts with hip hop artists, dancing on stage. She really put in the work for 107 days, changing her accent. I love you back. Being Spanish one day. You better call a union member. Yeah, that's what she did for 107 days. Jumping on the Breakfast Club, talked about collard greens. No. 107 days was a debacle. It was a disaster.
And then we thought she was going to win, like we did with Hillary in 2016. And
you thought she was going to win? Come on, Anna. You were, back when I was a Democrat, you were one of my favorite people on CNN. You really were. You told it like it was. Now you're just lying. Come on.
She didn't. So I think people are exhausted. I think they are looking at, taking care of themselves before they take care of America, right? I got to breathe. My mental health has got to be in a good place. My physical health has got to be in a good place. That doesn't mean we're going to tune out for 4 years, but it means we're going to take some bubble baths for a little bit.
Yeah, so she said a mouthful there. She's right, though. Americans are tired. We're beat down. We're whipped. Jack Smith dropped the case. He's like, listen, we just want to move on, run our country. Democrats are even tired. Democrats are against their own party. They're like, what are we doing? We need to refocus, reshape, figure out what we're doing. There's some Democrats that say, I could never be Republican. I could never vote for Donald Trump, but we got to do something different. Otherwise, I'm just not voting anymore. Something's got to happen. And but Anna Navarro, the reason I say she gets it is because she's right. People are mentally checked out. If I didn't care as much about politics in America as I do, I would have checked out years ago. I think it's my civic duty. It's my obligation as an American to stay in the process, try and figure out what's good for America, and continue to fight. And what I've decided to do this go around was change my party, vote for Donald Trump, and let's figure it out and see what happens. Other than that, guys, you take care.